Food Prep Guide. I would like to have another one of those just heart-to-heart chats with you today in the kitchen about overwhelm. I think overwhelm is a universal emotion experienced by all of us, no matter what walk of life you come from. I personally have really benefited from other people talking about ways that they have found to overcome overwhelm. And I hope that there is something that I say today that is helpful to you and that you can take away and apply to your life and hopefully reduce overwhelm in your life. Okay, let's get started. Welcome to Food Prep Guide. My name is Jordan. I'm a homeschooling mom to 3, living on 3 beautiful acres with my wonderful husband. A health crisis forced our family to change the way we think about food. Unfortunately, it also put us in financial hardship. Thankfully, the solution to both challenges was the same: to live off the land as much as possible. For us, that means growing a garden, preserving the harvest, raising chickens, and cooking from scratch. It's definitely a family affair. And friends, too. Meet Stacy, researcher, author, and lifelong learner. She entered the world of food preservation in the crazy days of 2020. She joined a gleaning co-op, and a local grocer offered her clearance produce in bulk, and so the adventure began. Together, we're reclaiming the old ways of food stewardship and teaching them to the next generation. If there's one thing you should know about us, it's that we love Jesus and seek to steward his blessings wisely. Our table always has room for one more, so y'all come join us. Okay, I have 7 tips for you, 7 tips for you today about ways to reduce overwhelm. But before I jump into the numbered list of really practical advice, I don't think I could do a video like this justice unless I mentioned that as a born-again believer, as a Jesus follower, overwhelm sets in without a doubt whenever I don't spend my time with Jesus in the mornings. You can mark her down. If I am extremely overwhelmed, more than likely I didn't have my quiet time with the Lord that morning. He is the vine, we are the branches, and if I am not feeding from him, I'm not staying connected to him and abiding in him, overwhelm sets in really fast. With that said, there have been plenty of periods in my life when I have dealt with overwhelm and didn't necessarily skip my morning time with Jesus. It was just an extremely hectic, chaotic time, whether it was one event in one day or more than likely, overwhelm tends to set in, for me at least, when multiple factors from multiple different areas of my life converge, and overwhelm tends to set in. So if you are a Christian, I didn't want to do a video like this without saying that, because it is proven true for me time and time again. We've got to remain connected and abiding in Jesus to avoid overwhelm. Now, there are plenty of tips and advice out there for reducing overwhelm, and a lot of it is like take a 10-minute walk, take a bubble bath, and I'm not saying that's bad advice, but I just want to get really practical and actionable with you today and really get into some specific practices that have helped me reduce overwhelm in my life. Okay, so number 1 is reducing the amount of decisions that I have to make in a day. This is a common practice in productivity books and gurus and stuff like that, people who really make a living on teaching productivity, and that is minimizing the amount of decisions that you have to make in a day. But for me, overwhelm is generally a mental thing. It's born in the brain, not necessarily born from physical exhaustion. Of course, that is possible, but for me, usually the physical exhaustion is like a symptom of the brain fatigue, and that's where the overwhelm starts. So one of the ways that I have eliminated the amount of decisions that I have to make in the day is in the food that we eat. I know it's not popular. I don't think it is popular, at least, to eat the same thing every day. But number 1, we don't eat the same things every day. I'm going to give you some tips in just a minute about how you can eat the same core, but change it up every single day. So I'll get to that in just a second. But also, when I when I first got married, even before I had children, I remember having this point where it's like a light bulb went off that I'm gonna have to figure out what to eat and what to cook and feed my husband and future children 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for the rest of my life. And it's like that just hit me, and I was like, wow, I mean, how much time am I going to be dedicating in my life just to meals? And not just time and money at the grocery store, but the brain power in making all of these food decisions for the family. And as our family grew, that just became bigger and bigger. So one of the things that I implemented really early on was streamlining our breakfast, lunch, and snacks to where we pretty much were eating the same core things for breakfast, lunch, and snacks, and the diversity and the rotation and the lots and lots of options and recipes I really saved for that last meal of the day, the dinner or supper meal. So to give you just some really specific examples for eating the same things but not necessarily eating the same things, so for instance, I will have a smoothie every single morning. And so in my pantry, I make sure I have stocked protein powder, almond milk, and just a bunch of different mix-ins. I might have a fruity-based flavor for a fruit-based smoothie. I might have cocoa for a chocolate-based smoothie. I might add peanut butter one day for a peanut butter-based smoothie. So you can have a smoothie every morning and stock a lot of times shelf-stable ingredients so that you're not having to constantly go to the store and buy more, fresh produce like every few days or once a week. You can store a lot of shelf-stable things like mushroom blend, freeze-dried powders, dehydrated fruits that you might want to rehydrate the night before, protein powders, and things like that. And another one is oats. So my children eat oats or a form of oats almost every single day. So we stock oats in bulk. If you're a friend of the Food Prep Guide, you've heard me say that many times, and you may even already know what I'm going to say next, which is that we just stock a whole different bunch of ways to flavor those oats, whether it's oatmeal, overnight oats, baked oatmeal, granola. There are so many different things that we can stock that are shelf stable: jams, jellies, peanut butter powder for the granola, flax seeds, chia seeds. All of those things can be mixed in and used as flavoring for a base of oats, so that even though, every single day I know it's going to be smoothie and some form of oats, I don't have to think about that anymore like the rest of my life. I just have plenty of options stocked that I generally I only have to purchase maybe twice a year in bulk through some place like Azure Standard, or it's things that we have dehydrated and freeze-dried or frozen from the garden to last us through the year. So it's even limiting decisions that I have to make in the grocery budget in the meal planning phase of life as well. So just streamlining breakfast, snacks, and lunches have really opened up a lot of brain space for me, and it's just something that I don't have to face a decision with every single day, first thing in the morning for breakfast, and then at lunch. Lunch is almost always salads from the garden, leftovers from the night before, or sandwiches. We either bake bread or have bread on hand at all times. We make all sorts of jams and jellies throughout the garden season, and we stock peanut butter. And we might have, one of the other things that we like to do is just to go out to the garden and do like a charcuterie board of just a whole bunch of different vegetables with dips. So that's like one of the things that we do for lunch as well. So minimizing the amount of decisions that I have to make in a day. The other aspect of life that has really helped minimize the amount of decisions that I have to make is waking up in the morning and doing the exact same thing every single morning. It might sound boring, it might sound monotonous, but again, just not being faced with decision making as soon as I wake up has done a world of good for me to not feel overwhelmed throughout the day. So every single morning, it's like the same, wake up, read my Bible, fix my smoothie, get a load of dishes done, get a load of laundry done, get the kids going with their chores, their zone cleaning, and then little kitchen tasks, and then we move into our school time. And just following that exact same morning routine every single morning means I don't have to make any decisions pretty much until much later in the day, and that has really helped reduce the amount of overwhelm that I feel throughout the day. Okay, so number 2 is I am overwhelmed when I have this feeling that I'm going to forget something, whether it's big, whether it's small. If you are someone who gets distracted or overwhelmed or feel like you have to constantly, even though you're doing this task, you have to constantly be remembering all this other stuff. If you're someone that gets overwhelmed by that, I highly recommend the To Do app. It's spelled TEUXDEUX app. I am a paper and pen person. I have a paper planner. I absolutely love my paper planner. And I didn't think I would ever do anything digital. But the To Do app has, I cannot tell you how much it has transformed my ability to prevent overwhelm in the first place. So, most of the time we have our phones with us throughout the day, whether it's in our pocket or on the side table or maybe even in the next room or on our desk. Our phone is near us, generally speaking, for the most part. And when something pops into my head and I can't do that thing right now, or I shouldn't do that thing right now, I will pull up that to-do app, type it in, and it's saved. It's kind of like using your notes app, but the reason why the to-do app is so remarkable is that everything from that day's list automatically moves to the next day for you if you didn't get it marked off. And that has been the game changer for me. I have always, and I still do, write things down in a notebook, but if that paper gets lost, if the notebook gets misplaced, or if I don't rip that paper out and move it over to a different section of the notebook or rewrite that task again on future days, it gets lost. And that's where a feeling of overwhelm can start coming in, that I am forgetting something big, I'm juggling things, and I'm going to drop the ball. The To-Do app, like I said, automatically moves whatever is on your list that you don't go in and check off. It automatically moves to the next day, and it just continues rolling. So I can have a task on there written 2 months ago. It's just going to continue rolling on to the next day, so that it's there when I need it, but it's also there knowing that I didn't forget it. So the To-Do app, I will try to find a link to it. I think they do have a website. I think they have a website. If they have a website, I will link it in the description box below. It's a yearly fee and it's not expensive at all. I think I paid $20 for the whole year. I don't know if that was a special. It may have been a sale, I'm not sure, but for the whole year, $20, it was, totally, absolutely phenomenal investment. So To Do app, I highly recommend that. Okay, number 3, and I kind of wish I had bumped this up to number 1 because I think it's probably the most important, and that is to identify your trigger for overwhelm and put systems in place to keep that trigger from ever firing in the first place. So several years ago, I was recovering from a chronic illness that had me bedridden for almost 3 years. And even though I healed phenomenally well from that chronic illness, one of the things that has carried over that I even still struggle with periodically today is that overwhelm can literally shut my body down. It's related to your cortisol levels. If you're interested in researching that and how that affects your body, but I can literally be put in bed for 3 or 4 days when overwhelm sets in. So it is extremely important to me, for taking care of my family, for my ability to work, for my ability to stay healthy, to not get into that system of overwhelm to begin with, because it has a very real, tangible effect physically on my body. So I had to sit down and really identify what is the trigger of overwhelm. There are so many triggers, of course, and I don't think it's going to be any one for any one person, but I was able to identify that the number 1 trigger of overwhelm for me was when I was trying to do too much at one time. I think it's probably pretty fair to say that that's pretty common amongst people, but I do know that there are people who can multitask like a pro. They can juggle, different things and handle that, but I can't. And when I have to try to divide my attention among multiple different things at one time, a lot of times, if I try to do that for multiple days in a row, my body will just be like, nope, you're not doing it, and just shut down. And then I'm forced to be in bed for 3 or 4 days. It's terrible. So when I was able to identify that trigger, I was like, okay, what kind of systems can I put in place to avoid reaching that breaking point? And for me, it was theme days and batch working. I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but I don't think I went into really how important it is for me. And if you're someone who's triggered that same way, it might be really important for you as well to have theme days for your life, batch working and stuff. So I want to give you some really specific examples. So let's talk about an example with my children, homeschooling. Um, there are days when, we will do our core subjects every single day without fail, but there will be days if we have like a science activity, or we have a history lesson that is kind of more involved and has some more hands-on work involved. We are only going to do that one day a week. And so, let's say Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm not even thinking about the activities and stuff that I need to get together for, a history and science or something like that. And it is only dedicated to that day. An example in my work life, food prep guide is part of a big chunk of my job, and I absolutely love it. There's filming involved and emailing, and we run a website. Stacy and I we have a shop with products, and just it's multifaceted. And for instance, on Mondays, it's email days. If it has to be, if something has to be emailed, well, that's it. If something has to be emailed, it happens on a Monday. And then the whole rest of the week, I'm not thinking about emails. I'm not brainstorming emails. I'm not writing emails. It's just Mondays is my email day, and that's all I do all day long when it comes to work. Same thing goes throughout the rest of the week. I have certain work tasks that due on certain days and none other. As far as just life, errands, doctor appointments, that kind of thing, that I had to choose a day. I couldn't leave. This might sound dramatic and maybe a little ridiculous, I don't know, but for me, leaving the house with 3 kids multiple times throughout the week, it's hard. It's hard getting everybody, out the door, and because of where we live, anytime we leave the house, it's like basically a 2 to 3 hour commitment. There is no such thing as running to the store for 20 minutes and getting back to our routine. There's no such thing. And since routines are such an important part of our homeschooling day and our work day and my ability to reduce overwhelm, disrupting those routines all throughout the week with having to leave the house, which, like I said, because of where we live, 2 to 3 hour commitment, I just couldn't do it. So I have one day when, if I have a doctor appointment that I have to schedule, if I have to do grocery shopping, if I have to go to the post office, if my husband has to have some kind of doctor appointment or something, anything. If you are triggered by doing multiple things at one time, if that triggers your overwhelm, see if you can try to work in batches on certain days, to where when you wake up that morning, Lord willing, if the day goes as planned, which we know it doesn't all the time, but if it goes as planned, this is what I'm doing, and I don't have to concern myself with all the other balls that I juggle. This is what needs to get done today, and pretty much nothing else, as long as my priorities are met. So that, I wish I kind of set that one first, because a lot of these others kind of snowball out from identifying your particular trigger and setting up systems for that. So that's just one example from my life personally. So number 4 is quiet time throughout the day. And I don't mean this is outside of like your morning Bible reading or devotional time with Jesus. I mean, if you have any number of children, you know that it just gets loud, and not a bad loud. It's laughter and giggles and running and chasing and hide and seek and fun. And then there's also the not so fun noises, and we all know about those too. But it is absolutely critical for me to have a period of time for all, and my children probably don't even understand how much this impacts them too. They just do it because mom says to be quiet and read a book for 10 minutes, but everyone, and I truly believe this, everyone benefits from having downtime for their brain and ears, I think. Having not a ton of noise going around. We live in such an overstimulated culture today, with computers and phones and TV and streaming services and ads and music, and which is, all of those things can be good or bad and used in moderation. But I think just having a time period, for us, it's 30 minutes. It doesn't happen every single day, but I do try to make it happen every now and then. We do homeschool, and so for us, or for me, that 30-minute time frame I have set up to be like a reading time for my kids. But you can do anything, just a quiet activity, and we don't have the TV on, we don't have a radio on, we don't even listen to music during that time. It is just quiet, kind of not shutting our brains down, because normally it's reading or drawing, or my son really loves to write, something like that. But just all those electronics and things, just turning everything off and having that on a daily basis really helps me, and I think really helps my children, whether they realize it or not, to not get so hyper, not get so overwhelmed, and it just helps the tension kind of in the house just kind of get restored to a little bit more of a peaceful atmosphere that we're trying to create and maintain and sustain inside of our homes. Okay, tip number 5, and this one is a little strange, but hear me out. It is grounding. Grounding is when you go outside and you allow your bare feet to come into contact with the ground. Now, I just want to kind of put a caveat on this. There's like a fine line with grounding where a lot of new agey, like mysticism, has kind of creeped in and taken this completely natural and wise and good gift of grounding, and they've taken it in the far left and made it into something that is not godly and that is not God honoring. But when I am talking about grounding, I am just talking about getting our bare feet onto the bare earth. The reason why is because our bodies are electrical in nature, and as electrical, beings. I'm not saying we're robots or anything like that. I don't want to trip over my words, but if you study, I'm sure y'all know, if you study how your cells communicate with each other and your nerves, and your autonomic nervous system and all of that, there's just a lot of frequencies and electrical, communications that are happening inside of our bodies, and as such, they are extremely affected by the artificial frequencies that surround us, specifically radio frequencies from our cell phones, or even something like the magnetic field from our desktop computer or our laptop computer. All of those things impact our bodies whether we feel it physically or not, and usually it's more that we feel it mentally or not. And a lot of people don't connect those dots, but it is very, very connected if you do your research. And I have found that going outside barefoot, it basically grounds the energy in your body, and it goes into the earth. So picture, I don't want to make that sound frou-frou. Picture, it's like how skyscrapers have a lightning rod on the top of the skyscraper, and that lightning rod attracts the lightning, and then it discharges it into the ground instead of that lightning striking the building and frying all the electrical connections in that building. That lightning rod guides it into the ground, and then it gets discharged. And it's just like when you have static electricity, if you touch something that is grounding, it discharges it, versus if you touch something that is conductive like metal, it zaps you. So this idea of grounding is not a frou-frou, new agey concept, even though they may have taken it and done things with it that I don't agree with personally. The concept of grounding is true. It is absolutely beneficial, and it doesn't have to be long at all. It can be 5 minutes. It's not anything. My children play outside. Normally when they're playing outside barefoot. And we started that at a very young age because we understand how important it is for our bare feet to come in contact with the ground. And I have found that when I'm just feeling really stressed out and anxious, and I feel like my whole body is just tensed and clenched up, if I can go outside, and it's usually my garden, I usually walk in my garden barefoot and look at the flowers, feel the plant leaves, maybe water something. But doing it all barefoot is it's like a reset for the body, and it doesn't take long at all. It can be as little as 5 minutes. So hope that didn't seem too strange. Okay, tip number 6 is minimizing stuff, minimizing clutter. We have all heard the minimalism tips for getting rid of just stuff that you don't need. And I have not implemented that in my house fully. I don't think I can with my husband and 3 kids, but I have looked at certain areas that have been causing me the most issues, and tried to see what I could do to minimize that. So two things come to mind: dishes and laundry. So dishes, one day, it was a long time ago, I just realized we don't need 20 forks. We don't need 15 butter knives. We're a family of 5, and I do dishes every single day. And even if I don't do the dishes every day, let's say I definitely don't go more than 2 days without doing it. We just don't need that many, and it was just cluttering up our um, our drawers, and it was actually causing more dishes to be done, because instead of washing that one that we had, people would just continue grabbing more, and it would just fill up the sink even more. So that's just a really practical example of decluttering and minimizing the amount of things. How much do you really need based on your routine? Do you have a routine where you do dishes every day or every other day? If you do, how many knives, how many butter knives, how many spoons, how many bowls, how many plates do you really need on a regular basis? Because the more that there is, the more that has to be washed and maintained. The second one for me was towels and laundry. It felt like I was drowning in towels and dishcloths and rags. And I was like, last time I counted, we're just 5 people, right? And I know 5 people in a small house, it can get kind of crazy, but we're still just 5 people. We didn't turn into a family of 20 all of a sudden. That's what it felt like with all the towels. So I got rid of a whole bunch of them, and we're 5 people. I keep 7 towels. So that's enough for everybody, plus just to have 2, just in cases. Like, really, I didn't need to keep 7. And I did the same thing, 7 wash rags, 7 towels. I think I went down to 5 dishcloths, because I don't need a whole bunch of those. So just just 2 examples that I can think of the top of my head about minimizing and why and how it impacts the amount of things that I have to do each day: laundry, dishes. So look for areas in your house that actually impact what you have to do that day, things that impact your task list. I have a lot of things that don't impact my task list at all, so I don't really feel the need to go minimal, in that area. But when it impacts dishes and then laundry, yeah, it was a good return on investment of taking that time and really paring down the amount of items that I have for those specific categories. Okay, tip number 7, this is the last one, I think, and that is strategic drop boxes. This is for those of you, it kind of goes back to identifying your trigger and putting systems in place. If your trigger of overwhelm is visual clutter, like you don't like seeing all this stuff around you, or you don't like seeing mess if it really has an effect on you, then having strategic drop boxes throughout your house is something that I did because even though my trigger is juggling multiple things at once, I also have like a visual clutter issue. So 2 things that I can think of right off the top of my head is blankets. I don't know about you, but I feel like blankets, the throw blankets, the blankets that my children like to cuddle up in at night, we all have our favorites. They just get everywhere, and that was something that was really bothering me. So we got a blanket box, and it was actually just an old laundry hamper. I made it cuter, tied some rope around it. I mean, it's just make it look good, make it look like part of the decor, because that kind of goes along with the visual clutter too. When things look nice and tidy and in their place, it just has like a calming effect on me. Hopefully maybe you can relate, but having a dedicated blanket box, so when we're tidying up and cleaning up throughout the day, people aren't wondering where to put the blankets, and they're not just throwing them places or throwing them on the couch. They all go into the blanket box. Another area, we don't have a 2-story house, but I thought about this. If you have a 2-story house, having a drop box at the bottom of the stairs that you can just toss things in throughout the day as you see them. And while you might not want to run upstairs and put it in its place right that second, because you might be tending to the baby, or you might have to go take a phone call or something like that, you can at least toss it into that drop box so it's in one place, and you can just, when the time is available, you can take that whole drop box up to this upstairs, go put everything away. That's another idea. The other idea that I had that we do is I have like a kids corner area where toys from their rooms spill out into the other parts of the house, and that's fine. I don't want to say, well, no, you can't have that out here. I didn't want to say that, so because I want us all to be together. This was more of a problem when they were a lot younger. They're getting older now, But having a kids corner that has boxes, I just got one of those 6 cube shelves, those cheap things from Walmart where they each have this little box. And when we were tidying throughout the day, any toys or anything kind of related to that would just get tossed in those boxes and put onto those shelves. And later on, when we have like a big deep clean day, we can decide if that needs to go to the bedroom. Or is it okay for it to just stay in those boxes because they're probably going to play with it again in the living room the next day. So that's just another example of using strategic drop boxes to contain visual clutter if that's something that affects you and has like an effect on your overwhelm or feeling overwhelmed. Okay, y'all, I hope that was helpful. I think that's it. I hope I didn't waste your time. I hope that was helpful to you. Overwhelm is, I think, something that just affects all of us, and there are very practical things that we can do to really stop that overwhelm from happening in the first place so that we're not having to do mitigating or treatment issues. We can really focus on the prevention, and that's what these 7 tips were today, is prevention, preventing that trigger from ever firing in the first place. Okay, y'all, that's it for today. We do have a video on like homemaking habits for, you know, simple, slower paced lifestyle. If you're interested in that one, I'll link that chat on the screen somewhere right about there. We'll see you next time. Bye.